Nobody had set foot in his house for years, until they found his body. That's when police opened his fridge and saw thousands of rolls of film. Content warning. This story discusses real-world missing persons, grief, and unresolved crimes. Newsletter discretion is advised. Imagine being the night patrol officer on a stormy July night in Groveton, Vermont. A town so quiet the traffic lights blink yellow after sunset. Picture yourself drifting past the paint-chipped old house on Hilltop Lane, a place shrouded in overgrown trees and neighborhood whispers, where nobody visits and where rumors thrive about its singular, reclusive inhabitant, Felix Harrow. Just after midnight, the police dispatcher calls in a welfare check at 104 Hilltop. The neighbor reported a strange odor wafting from the place. As the responding officer, you arrive to see headlights brushing against wild hedges, a mailbox overflowing with old flyers and unopened bills. No lights, no movement, just silence and that spreading sense of unease. Waiting for backup, you call out and knock, but the only answer is the building's oppressive stillness and a creeping, sour scent beneath the door. You force the lock. Inside, the overwhelming cold doesn't feel natural. It feels stagnant, like air that hasn't moved in years. Within moments, you discover Felix Harrow, slumped lifeless in his faded recliner, covered in a patchwork of wool blankets and old paperbacks. But that isn't what makes your heart race. It's what's in the rest of the house. Boxes stacked knee-high in corridors and closets, canisters crammed in dresser drawers, the tub, behind pots in the kitchen, and, most haunting of all, hundreds, then thousands, of 35mm film rolls meticulously stored in the refrigerator, some labeled with cryptic numbers and dates, others with initials, but most marked only by hand. Police conduct an exhaustive search and collect 45,131 undeveloped 35mm film canisters, some stretching back to 1992. Several battered cameras, oiled and used. Handwritten notes and small ledgers, many containing only brief, enigmatic references to places, people, or times of day. Felix Harrow was 73, without children or close relatives. The Social Security office lists his last profession as a long-haul bus mechanic. To nearby residents, he was a familiar sight, shuffling down Main Street with a weathered camera bag, but few could recall more than a polite nod. In the days after Felix's passing, investigators and press swarm the old house. The film canisters are logged, tagged, and stored before being shipped to labs for development. Slowly, over days and then weeks, the contents begin to reveal themselves. At first, most rolls are unremarkable. Scenes of aging diners, empty playgrounds, town parades, or quiet intersections. But then, from a sleeve of negatives dated April 11, 2004, comes something chilling. A teenage girl, startled, glancing over her shoulder near a gas station pump. The timestamp reads 8:13 p.m., 12 hours after the girl, Holly Ray Madsen, was last seen. She'd become a fixture on missing person posters, her case cold for 2 decades. This single photograph rocks the community. Holly stands beside a gray Honda Coupe, her image capturing the possibility that she not only survived her last sighting, but traveled to a different town that very night. Holly's mother's heartbreak is reignited.
I'd started to forget her face.
She admits at the first press conference.
I almost didn't recognize her. Now, I need to know how he got that picture.
With just a fraction of the rolls developed, 3 other missing persons are confirmed in images. Ordinary moments, lively and alive far beyond the day their files went cold. The evidence suggests Felix Harrow captured thousands of anonymous dramas over years, sometimes from a distance, often unintentionally, documenting the moments before someone vanished. As newly developed photos and the meticulously logged metadata begin to surface, a toddler crossing a field, a shattered car parked at a bridge, A school bus left alone in early morning. Police, families, and the public are forced to reconsider everything. Felix's unassuming archive starts to unravel a web of disappearances across rural New England. Who was Felix Harrow? A silent bystander? An accidental archivist? Or someone compelled by patterns no one else could see? Why did he keep these undeveloped secrets, each canister dusty with time? As cold cases begin to thaw, and the small town of Groveton becomes the focus of national debate and media fascination, it's clear that the real story, strange, dark, and profoundly human, has only just begun. By November 2024, what began as a local welfare check has spiraled into one of the most widely discussed cold case developments in decades. Inside Groveton's converted town theater, now functioning as a makeshift operations hub, a dozen investigators and volunteers sift through an ever-growing stack of film rolls, notebooks, and labeled manila envelopes. Some wear gloves, others headlamps, and all move with the haunted precision of people who have seen too much and still know they're only scratching the surface. Each roll of film tells a story. Most contain scenes so routine they're almost comforting. A farmer walking a cornfield, a boy on a bike, a town parade doubling back on itself year after year. But every so often, something freezes the room. A child in a red jacket on a sidewalk, unaccompanied, time-stamped exactly 2 hours before she was reported missing. A silver sedan with shattered glass parked beside a bridge, the very place a scream was once called in and dismissed as nothing. Faces in the backs of parades, watching, waiting, later disappearing. The initial revulsion over Felix Harrow's reclusion quickly softens into something more conflicted and more curious. Each clue points toward a man who was compulsively present, never directly involved, never documented as a suspect, but always nearby when the world went quiet around someone. That's when the ledger is found, a green, battered notebook buried inside a chest of old coats. It contains dates, cities, weather descriptions, and GPS coordinates. At first, it looks like a travel journal. Then patterns begin to emerge. Every entry corresponds to repeat visits, often near reported disappearances, sometimes days before, sometimes weeks after, but consistently adjacent to misfortune. There are notes such as RB at SR that remain ambiguous, and long lists of initials, later matched to names on missing persons lists. Investigators realize Felix was traveling on old Greyhound bus schedules. He had been retracing routes he'd once maintained mechanically, riding as a passive passenger from town to town with a camera and a notebook. What began as speculation turned serious when they re-examined the Holly Ray Madsen image. She wasn't last seen in Groveton as everyone believed. The photo Felix took places her at a gas station in Chester, 60 miles away the night she vanished. In the photo, she's standing beside a tired blue Honda, alone, glancing around. Gas pumps in the background glow beneath the timestamp. 8:13 p.m., April 11th, 2004. Newspapers run the image with headlines like, 20 years after disappearance, a camera reveals the last sight of Holly Ray. The world takes notice again. Holly's mother, Anne, steps forward for the first time in years. She says she almost failed to recognize her daughter.
I thought I'd forgotten her face.
She whispers at a press event.
But Felix didn't.
The gas station manager is tracked down. Now semi-retired, living 3 towns over. He remembers Holly, barely.
She looked nervous. I remember she didn't buy anything, just stood there for a minute and left.
Police push harder, but no credit card traces exist. No vehicle was identified. These are the kinds of leads that return again and again, small progress and massive doubt. As film continues to be developed, the discoveries keep rolling in. Children, teens, even adults, all photographed, sometimes weeks or hours before their disappearances. One haunting sequence caught on 35mm depicts an empty elementary school, followed by a photo of a yellow umbrella lying open on a wet sidewalk. Hours later, a report of a missing teacher. Every clear clue seems to birth 5 more questions. Felix was perhaps the most tragic sort of detective, always there, always recording, yet never intervening. People start to wonder if he suspected something, if there was some pattern he noticed that no one else did. But the question keeps surfacing. Why didn't he ever say anything? Police begin to backtrack several of the earliest missing children who appear faintly in Felix's images. At first, there's panic. That this man might have been more than a witness. That maybe he'd been orchestrating something dark. But forensic timelines clear him. Traffic cameras, bus logs, ATM timestamp data corroborate his whereabouts. The genealogist who finds one particularly disturbing photo, a boy in a green coat, later identified as a child who vanished in 1987, discovers Felix was clocked into work at a diner 3 towns away during the relevant hour. His story, again and again, resolves into a pattern. He didn't take part in anything, except observation. The community struggles with what to call him. For the true crime enthusiasts, he becomes an enigmatic folk hero. For grieving families, a memory keeper. And for investigators, a question mark in human form. In town halls and online debates, philosophy creeps in. What does it mean to be a witness? Is documenting injustice without trying to stop it complicity or a form of tribute? A local counselor tells a television crew, some collect ceramic cats. He collected grief, and maybe he didn't know how to let it go. By late October, Felix's ledger is matched against documented disappearances across state lines. The route is unmistakable. It's not just a personal obsession, it's a map. Every major outlier ties to minor stops on old Greyhound lines. Felix wasn't circling his small town. He was hunting, though for what, no one agrees. Several towns recall seeing an older man's. In November, investigators reach a chilling revelation. After plotting dozens of photos, cross-referencing dates and times, they discover that nearly 1/3 of Felix's most enigmatic photos occur extremely close in time and geography to unsolved missing persons cases. More than coincidence. Not enough to convict, but enough to wonder if Felix knew much more than he ever let on. By Thanksgiving, more than 9,000 rolls have been developed. Nearly 3% of the images linked to known missing person cases. Too many to dismiss. Too many to ignore. Volunteers from across the region arrive to help catalog the rest. Groveton's rec center is now a processing lab. Families stop in daily to check new uploads, to search for a missing earring, a freckled cheek, a smile they wish they hadn't forgotten. For many, this story isn't about closure. It's about acknowledgement. A stranger remembered what history erased. A stranger documented what no one wanted to admit had gone silent. At the end of the scene, the quiet truth settles around the town like fog. Felix Harrow might have only ever been watching, but he watched enough to rewrite everything. By November 2024, Felix Harrow's home stands at the heart of a national mystery. Once a site of quiet curiosity, Groveton's Hilltop Lane now draws news vans, volunteers, and families from distant states, each person chasing a glimmer of answer in the orphaned reels of film still being developed in batches each day. With thousands of images now digitized, law enforcement agencies across New England and beyond coordinate their searches, linking data previously siloed in county precincts and federal archives. The Harrow Project turns into a clearinghouse for cold cases, drawing on the work of police, analysts, and an ever-expanding force of volunteer investigators. public engagement soars. Some volunteers are crime podcast fans. Others are relatives of the missing. Others just curious students and retirees combing new uploads frame by frame. For the first time, families gain access to old evidence, sometimes seeing their loved ones' images for the first time in decades. Within a week, 3 persons of interest are flagged by civilian sleuths who cross-match facial details, timestamps, and vehicle appearances in the background of Felix's images. Names and leads that had lain dormant resurface in new light. Police, initially wary, find that the crowd's relentless attention is surfacing patterns missed by overburdened detectives. Groveton's police chief, Sonia Barrett, appears before the press.
We urge anybody who recognizes a place, a car, a face, reach out. Your smallest recollection might solve what's eluded us for years.
This openness brings new hope to some, painful revelations to others. Not every mystery yields closure. For many, the photographs offer solace. Mr. Laramie, silent and composed, speaks to a local support group.
After 15 years, to see my brother's face again, it hurts, but it's better than not knowing.
June Romero, who travels hours to leave flowers at Felix's fence, says simply, "He gave me one more day with my son's memory." But for others, new evidence reveals buried secrets, unspoken family rifts, betrayals, or the last moments of a loved one they hoped were still out there. Among thousands of scanned prints, analysts notice a recurring element, a dark-colored van, always on the edge of the frame, glimpsed at parades, parking lots, playgrounds. Sometimes its license plate is legible, but does not match any registration. At other times, it's just barely hidden by tree branches or children running past. This detail, once a curiosity, becomes a focus of the FBI's task force. Agents review transportation logs, rental records, and witness statements, considering for the first time the possibility that some cases may be linked by more than just geography and chance. Investigators begin to ask, was Felix tracking the van as a threat, or did their paths simply cross because both trafficked the same lonely places? Debates erupt over what to show and what to conceal. Some images are withheld at family requests. Others are broadcast on national screens, bringing new pain and sometimes unwanted attention. Reporters struggle with the ethics of sharing images, especially when faces cannot be identified or context remains unclear. In one community meeting, Holly Ray Madsen's mother asks the room,
He remembered her when the world forgot. Isn't that worth something?
The town reverend pins a note outside the church. Let us not judge the watchers among us. We may need their memories most of all. On New Year's Eve, a roll of film labeled Finale is processed. In its penultimate frame, Felix is caught by accident. His reflection in a dark window, holding a battered tape recorder instead of his camera. The search widens, and a shoebox of unlabeled cassettes surfaces. Hours of Felix's voice, narrating routes, reading aloud from case notes, sometimes lapsing into silence. The last tape is static, punctuated only by a single, shuddering breath before it ends. Analysts, exhausted but determined, keep listening, hoping for one last revelation. The full message Felix left is elusive. The evidence is mapped, compared, scrutinized, but the final connection, the thread that might turn rumor and pattern into proof, remains just out of reach as 2025 dawns. In this remote house, with its cold rooms and darkened fridge, one question now echoes in Groveton and in homes across the country. Will the puzzle finally resolve in the last clues, if only the right eyes see what Felix saw? As the first sun of 2025 rises over Groveton, the urgency in the makeshift command center deepens. Felix Harrow's home, nearly empty after months of investigation, still holds one last secret. In a final effort, Officers pry up a warped floorboard in the smallest bedroom and uncover a battered metal box. Inside, 6 tightly wound film canisters and a single note written with a wavering hand.
To whoever finds this, the full truth is not in these photos, but out in the world. Search the faces. Find the pattern. I was too late. Felix.
With trembling anticipation, the technicians process this last cache. Most images are ordinary: bus stops under cold street lamps, winter festivals, dusk falling over highways. But one detail stands apart. A woman's face recurs among different years and settings, subtle and aging, always carrying the same birthmark above her left eyebrow. Facial recognition finally gives her a name: Anna Trowbridge, missing from New Brunswick since 1997. In Felix's photographs, Anna is always slightly at the edge of a crowd, sometimes alone, sometimes with strangers, but unmistakably present as time passes. Sometimes she glances toward the lens, as if searching for the photographer himself. The last photo in the very final roll is the turning point. A snapshot dated just 6 months before Felix's death, showing Anna climbing into that same mysterious dark van, spotted over the years in the backgrounds of other disappearances. This is more than an isolated tragedy. It's evidence of a network, a shadow that moved unseen but was quietly traced for decades in Felix's neglected archive. With these revelations, the FBI reopens Anna's case and broadens investigations across state and even international lines. News outlets race to deliver the update. A hotline for new leads is flooded. Interpol queries Canadian authorities about similar cases. Families with missing loved ones from the 90s and 2000s call in, hoping for closure at last. Law enforcement agencies across the Northeast, previously operating in isolation, now share everything. In the eyes of a nation, Felix Harrow transforms from a suspicious outsider to a vital witness, unwitting but instrumental in linking cold cases and revealing connections long buried by bureaucracy and time.
Families gather at Holly Ray Madson's memorial to leave daffodils and messages of thanks. Coverage shifts, from speculation about Felix's motives to reflections on his legacy as a silent, patient observer whose presence, even if misunderstood, became the bond tying together so many unresolved stories. The passing months bring both hope and reckoning. Anna Trowbridge's relatives, long worn by uncertainty, speak with gratitude and grief. Holt lines receive hundreds of new tips. The FBI publishes a new protocol for cataloging photographic evidence submitted anonymously by citizens. Vermont lawmakers propose a bill informally known as the Felicity Act, intended to guarantee that photographic clues and anonymous evidence can be officially received and reviewed in missing persons cases, ensuring that no memory, no matter how quietly recorded, goes unheard. Debates follow, about privacy, about the right to document, about what makes someone a witness versus a participant. Was Felix's passive documentation a symptom of pain, a quirky compulsion, or a form of empathy that only hindsight can honor? Did he really help, or simply record what others wanted to forget? A local therapist's voice on the radio offers a gentle, distilled conclusion.
Sometimes the bravest act is to remember when others have forgotten. Collecting moments, even in silence, can change more than a life. It can change a town, a history, or even justice itself.
The story becomes a national conversation. A reminder that the missing deserve to be sought and the silent deserve to be heard. Groveton, Vermont, once defined by its isolation, is now known as a place where long-lost faces came home through the patient gaze of an unlikely archivist. Imagine being in Felix's shoes, moving from town to town, always watching but never knowing if your efforts are making any difference. Would you keep recording, trusting that each fragment of memory might one day change a life? Or would you intervene, break your silence, even at the risk of being misunderstood?